The terminal buzzed with the sound of rolling suitcases and boarding calls echoing across the intercom. Families reunited with hugs. Kids ran into their father's arms, and couples strolled hand in hand toward their gates. But me? I was standing alone under the harsh fluorescent lights of Gate 47, my backpack dangling off one shoulder, the straps biting into my skin. Mom didn't even look back. She was laughing, her manicured hand hooked around her new husband's arm as they wheeled away their glossy designer luggage. I caught a flash of her red lipstick, the expensive perfume cloud trailing behind her like a victory flag. I was 15, abandoned in the middle of an airport, clutching nothing but a worn-out boarding pass and a hollow chest. A security guard's radio crackled nearby. His eyes flicked toward me, confused, maybe even suspicious. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked up. All I could hear was Mom's voice replaying in my head. "You'll be fine. You're always fine." She thought leaving me here would break me, that I'd stay small, forgotten, powerless. But she had no idea what was coming. Before that night in the airport, I wasn't the kind of kid people worried about. Teachers loved me because I turned in homework early. Neighbors trusted me to water their plants when they went out of town. Even the old woman down the street, Mrs. Halpern, once said I had the kind of eyes that don't lie. I didn't cause trouble. I didn't ask for much. I just kept my head down and did what needed to be done. Mom used to say I was the easy one. My younger half-sister, Lila, was the princess, spoiled with glittering dresses, shiny gadgets, and a bedroom that looked like a magazine ad. Me? I had second-hand sneakers and a room tucked into the corner of the house where the wallpaper peeled like old sunburn. But I told myself it was fine. I told myself if I just stayed quiet, I'd avoid the storms that followed Mom wherever she went. The storms usually had names, men's names. There was Ryan, then Chase, then Uncle Greg, who didn't last more than 6 months. Each time, Mom transformed herself. New hair, new perfume, new laugh. And each time, I disappeared a little more. The first sting I can remember was on my 13th birthday. I'd saved up money from mowing lawns and babysitting, just enough to buy a simple cake. Chocolate, my favorite. I left it on the counter, waiting for Mom to come home so we could share it. Instead, she burst through the door, holding a gift-wrapped iPad for Lila, who hadn't even done her homework that week. Mom hugged her, kissed her forehead, and said, "You deserve this, sweet girl." Then her eyes flicked toward me. "Oh, you got yourself a cake?" That's thoughtful. She didn't even cut a slice. That was the night I started keeping things. Proof, reminders, little tokens that the world could be cruel, but that I was still here. A shoebox under my bed slowly filled with them. The receipt from that birthday cake, a broken bracelet Mom once promised to fix, a photo of Dad before he vanished from our lives. One object sat on top of them all, a small piggy bank shaped like a globe. It was chipped and scuffed, but inside it were crumpled bills and coins, my escape fund. Someday, I told myself, that globe would buy me freedom. Meanwhile, Mom grew louder, louder in her demands, louder in her love for Lila, louder in her laughter with each new man. And me, I became the shadow, the responsible one, the kid who stayed home when she wanted to go out, the one who babysat Lila for free, scrubbed the kitchen when it smelled like stale wine, made excuses to teachers when Mom forgot parent meetings. Still, I held on to hope. Hope that maybe one day Mom would look at me and see more than just the background character in her glamorous little movie. But that hope cracked the day she humiliated me in front of everyone at the community pool. I'd spent hours practicing my dive, finally brave enough to try it in public. As I climbed the ladder, I heard her voice slicing through the summer air. "Oh, don't get your hopes up," she called, sunglasses perched on her nose, lounging with her new boyfriend. She's more of a belly flop type. Lila and her friends howled with laughter. My chest burned hot. When I hit the water, the sting wasn't from the dive. It was from Mom's smirk waiting for me above the surface. That was the first time I understood. This wasn't about mistakes or favoritism anymore. This was a pattern, a deliberate choice. And if I didn't learn how to fight back, I'd drown in it. After the pool humiliation, I tried to tell myself it was just a moment, just a careless joke. But Mom's cruelty had a way of multiplying. One smirk turned into a pattern, and soon the pattern became a storm. It started small. My allowance mysteriously forgotten, my favorite hoodie, accidentally, given away to Lila's friend. But then it grew sharper. If I cooked dinner, Mom would pick apart the food. Too salty, too dry. Why do you even try? If I got an A on a math test, she'd wave it off with, "Grades don't matter in the real world. Looks do." Her words didn't just sting, they carved me hollow. Nights grew longer. I'd lie awake staring at the cracked ceiling of my tiny room, listening to the muffled sound of laughter downstairs. Mom, her husband, and Lila watching movies on the big TV. My body ached from the double shifts I worked at the diner down the street, money that Mom called our household contribution. Translation: hers to spend, not mine to keep. One night I came home past midnight, smelling like grease and coffee. I found the front door locked. I knocked softly at first, then harder. Finally, Mom appeared at the upstairs window, her silhouette backlit by the warm glow of the bedroom lamp. "You're late," she said, voice sharp as glass. "I was at work," I called back, shivering in the night air. "You should have thought about that before wasting everyone's time." "Sleep at the diner next time." Then the window slammed shut. I ended up curling on the porch with my backpack as a pillow, the chill sinking into my bones. For the first time, I wondered if maybe she really wanted me gone. School became no refuge either. Rumors drifted down the hall. Things only someone close to me could have spread. That I was angry all the time, that I stole tips from work, that I made things up for attention. I didn't have to look far to know where it came from. Mom was charming, magnetic. She knew how to twist stories so people laughed with her instead of at her. Each whisper isolated me more. Friends stopped calling. Teachers looked at me differently. Even the diner manager started eyeing me like I might pocket the register. The weight pressed harder. Sleepless nights turned into skipped meals. My reflection in the mirror grew pale, dark circles bruising my eyes. I started carrying my piggy bank globe in my backpack, like a secret anchor, as if holding it close might stop me from drifting into nothing. Then, when the silence felt unbearable, something shifted. It happened one rainy afternoon at the diner. I was wiping down a booth when Mrs. Halpern walked in, the elderly neighbor who'd once said my eyes didn't lie. Her umbrella dripped water on the floor as she slid into a seat. "You look thin," she said, studying me with those sharp, grandmotherly eyes. "I'm fine," I muttered automatically. She tilted her head. "That's the problem, dear. You always say you're fine." Something in me cracked. Words spilled out before I could stop them. The locked doors, the rumors, the nights alone. My throat burned, but her gaze never wavered. She didn't laugh. She didn't dismiss me. She listened. When I finished, she reached across the table and placed her wrinkled hand over mine. "You are not crazy," she whispered, "and you are not alone." Remember that her words landed like oxygen in drowning lungs. For the first time in months, I felt a spark. Small, but real. That was the first time someone reminded me I wasn't alone. Mrs. Halpern's words clung to me like a secret flame, small but stubborn. For weeks afterward, I carried them everywhere. But flames attract attention, and Mom noticed. It began with the money. One afternoon, I came home from school to find my globe piggy bank sitting on my bed, cracked open, coins scattered across my sheets like spilled secrets. Mom leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "You've been hiding money from me?" "It's mine," I said, my voice trembling. "Nothing in this house is yours," she snapped. "Everything you touch, I pay for. Don't you dare think you can squirrel away money for yourself." I gathered the coins with shaking hands, but the damage was done. She knew now that I had a way out, and she was determined to seal every exit. The next blow came a week later at school. I was called into the office, where a stern counselor slid a folder across the desk. "We've received concerns," she said, eyes skimming me with quiet judgment. Inside the folder were notes, complaints that I was unstable, prone to episodes, maybe even a danger to myself. My jaw locked. Mom had planted them. "Your mother loves you," the counselor said carefully, "but she's worried." Loves me. Worried. Words that tasted like poison. By the time I got home, Mom was waiting with her husband, Jeff, and Lila perched smugly beside them. "We've decided," Jeff announced, "that if you can't respect rules, we'll have to involve the authorities." Authorities. The word thundered in my ears. They were threatening to send me away, to juvie, to foster care, anywhere I couldn't speak for myself. For a moment, I thought it was over. My throat locked. My hands went cold. I pictured the walls closing in, their laughter echoing as I disappeared into a system that wouldn't care. But then, something inside me hardened. "You think you hold all the cards," I said quietly, my eyes fixed on Mom. "But you don't." Her smirk faltered, just slightly. Because what she didn't know was that I had been keeping more than coins and scraps in that shoebox. I had records, text messages, pay stubs from the diner showing I was the one paying bills when she claimed it was Jeff. Even screenshots of her drunken rants, captured before she deleted them, and Mrs. Halpern, God bless her, had agreed to be a witness if I ever needed one. I didn't show all of it then. Not yet. But I let a hint slip. "If you want to play this game," I said, "be very sure you're ready for the truth to come out." For the first time in years, Mom's face lost color. Jeff barked something about disrespect, but his voice cracked with unease. Lila's smirk wavered. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't powerless anymore. They thought they still had control. They didn't. If Mom had been rattled by my quiet threat, she hid it well. Within days, she launched her counterattack. The rumors grew louder. At school, whispers followed me like shadows. "She steals." "She lies." "She hit her mom once." None of it true, but Mom's charm made it stick. She showed up at PTA meetings with crocodile tears, spinning herself as the exhausted mother of a troubled teen. Teachers nodded, neighbors clucked their tongues, and Lila thrived on the attention. Even at the diner, my safe place began to crumble. A man I'd never seen before stormed in one evening, claiming I'd stolen from his car in the parking lot. His story was shaky, but it didn't matter. Mom had planted him, another pawn in her game. I felt cornered, yes, but this time I refused to collapse. I began keeping detailed notes, dates, times, conversations. I stored copies of receipts and screenshots on a USB drive I hid beneath a loose floorboard in my room. Every petty cruelty, every manipulative twist. I recorded it all. Each entry in my secret logbook felt like a brick in the wall I was building, a fortress no lie could penetrate. And I wasn't alone anymore. Mrs. Halpern quietly checked in, sometimes slipping me sandwiches wrapped in foil, sometimes just reminding me, "You're not crazy, dear. You're brave." The piggy bank globe became more than just an escape fund. It was my symbol of resistance. I'd shake it sometimes at night, the rattle of coins reminding me I still had a future worth fighting for. But Mom wasn't finished. One evening, she gathered family and neighbors for what she called a family meeting. I sat in the living room, surrounded by faces I'd known all my life, faces now hardened with suspicion. Mom stood at the center, tears rolling dramatically down her cheeks. "She doesn't respect us," she declared. "She's dangerous." "I fear for Lila." For all of us, gasps rippled across the room. Someone muttered, "Poor thing," pointing at Lila, who sat clutching a stuffed bear like she was in a commercial for innocence. I sat frozen, my heart pounding. It was a trap, a public trial with no defense. But instead of breaking, I observed, every exaggeration, every fake sob, every lie, I logged it in my mind, storing it for later. This wasn't my moment to fight. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew something Mom didn't. The cracks were starting to show. Her desperation was bleeding through. The more she attacked, the more evidence she left behind. Neighbors started noticing inconsistencies. Jeff snapped at her once in front of everyone. Even Lila, in her quieter moments, seemed confused by the shifting stories. And me? I was becoming sharper, colder. I stopped begging for her approval. I stopped explaining myself. Instead, I planned. Each day I worked, I saved more. Each night I wrote, I gathered more proof. Therapy at school became a lifeline. Finally, a counselor who listened, who helped me channel my anger into strategy instead of despair. The tension in the house grew unbearable. Doors slammed, shouts rattled the walls. But inside me, a new calm settled. The day of reckoning was coming, and no one could stop it. The showdown came sooner than I expected. It was a humid Saturday morning when Mom announced she was taking me to a family intervention. My stomach tightened. By now I knew what that meant, a staged spectacle designed to break me in front of an audience. This time, though, I was ready. The community center smelled of coffee and floor polish. Folding chairs formed a circle, filled with familiar faces, neighbors, family friends, even a teacher. Mom swept in like a queen, Lila trailing behind her in a pastel dress. Jeff carried a folder stuffed with papers, as if props could make lies more convincing. "Thank you all for coming," Mom began, her voice trembling with rehearsed sorrow. "I don't know how much longer I can protect my family from her." She gestured toward me like I was some wild animal. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. I sat perfectly still, calm, collected. The USB drive in my pocket felt like a loaded weapon. Mom launched into her performance. Tales of my violent outbursts, of money I'd stolen, of sleepless nights she claimed were caused by my instability. Each sentence was sharpened to pierce, each tear a drop of poison. People nodded sympathetically. For a moment, the tide tilted her way. Then Jeff handed her the folder. "We've documented everything," he said smugly. "You'll all see." I let them bask for a second. Let them believe. And then, when the silence reached its peak, I stood. "Are you finished?" I asked, my voice steady. Mom blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" I pulled the USB from my pocket and held it up. "Because I've documented everything too." Whispers rippled through the room. I crossed to the projector at the front and slid the drive in. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. Slide after slide filled the screen. Screenshots of texts where Mom mocked me for paying the bills. Pay stubs from the diner showing my wages deposited straight into her account. Photos of bruises on my arm from nights she'd grabbed me too hard. Gasps filled the air. Faces shifted, from pity for her to shock, then anger. "Lies!" Mom shrieked, her mask slipping. "All lies!" But the room had already changed. Her crocodile tears dried up in the glare of truth. Jeff fumbled, muttering excuses. Lila shrank into her chair, clutching her bear like it could shield her from the collapse. I turned to face them all. For years I stayed quiet because I thought silence meant peace. But silence only gave her power. This, I gestured to the evidence glowing on the screen, is the truth. I don't want apologies. I want change. The room fell silent. Even the air conditioner seemed to pause. Mom's hands trembled as she reached for the folder, but no one was looking at her anymore. They were looking at me, the shadow who had stepped into the light. And in that silence, I knew. The empire she built on lies had just crumbled. The meeting ended not with applause or shouting, but with silence so heavy it seemed to press against the walls. People filed out quietly, some avoiding Mom's eyes, others squeezing my shoulder as they passed. Mom tried to regain her footing, sputtering excuses, blaming Jeff, even accusing me of forging documents. But the room had shifted. No one bought her performance anymore. Her empire of charm had collapsed in one afternoon, and for once, she was the one left exposed. Within weeks, the fallout spread. Jeff left her, muttering something about not signing up for this mess. Neighbors who once adored her began to distance themselves, their polite smiles turning cold. At school, teachers pulled me aside, not to scold, but to apologize for believing her lies. Even Lila, confused and wide-eyed, stopped parroting Mom's words. She didn't hate me anymore. If anything, she seemed scared of the woman she once worshipped. As for Mom, she shrank. The woman who strutted through airports with designer luggage now lingered in shadows, snapping at clerks in grocery stores, blaming everyone but herself. Her voice, once loud enough to drown me, was reduced to bitter mutters. And me? For the first time, I felt free. I moved into a small apartment above the diner, paid for with my own wages. It wasn't much, just a bed, a desk, and a window that overlooked the town square. But it was mine. Every chipped wall, every squeaky floorboard whispered independence. The piggy bank globe sat on the desk, cracked and dented from years of battles. One night, I opened it. Out spilled the coins and crumpled bills I'd saved, now joined by new, crisp 20s from my paycheck. I smiled, filled it again, and taped the crack so it could keep holding my future. It wasn't just an escape fund anymore. It was proof that I could build something on my own. Sometimes I'd walk past the airport on my way home from work, the sound of rolling suitcases echoing in my memory. I'd picture that 15-year-old kid standing abandoned under the harsh lights of Gate 47, and I'd whisper to her, "You made it. You're stronger than they ever believed." The final irony? Mom still thought leaving me at that airport would break me. In reality, it forged me. Every cruel word, every locked door, every smear campaign, it all became fuel. Fuel for freedom. Fuel for growth. Fuel for a life that was finally mine. And as I sat at my desk one evening, the glow of the streetlights painting the room gold, I realized this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If you've listened this far, maybe you've lived through something similar. Maybe you've been overlooked, abandoned, or made to feel small by someone who should have protected you. I know how heavy that weight can be. But here's what I've learned. Worth isn't something they hand you. It's something you claim for yourself, piece by piece, even when the world tries to strip it away. So tell me, have you faced betrayal, favoritism, or abuse of power? And how did you rise above it? Share your story below, because every voice matters, and yours might be the spark that helps someone else. Remember this: they can try to silence you, but your truth is louder than their lies.